time to speak. Thank you.
We're not live, Chairman.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Communities and Partnerships Committee, today, the 20th of May, 2020. I'd like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the Council's website. Due to the government guidance on social distancing, this meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the provisions set out in the local authorities and police and crime panels, coronavirus flexibility of local authority and police and crime panel meetings, England and Wales, Regulations 2020, and with Cambridgeshire County Council's own virtual meetings protocol. A decision summary and minutes of the meeting will be produced in the usual way, and a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the meeting page of the Council's website. To enable the meeting to run in an orderly manner, I would ask all members of the committee to please keep their video camera switched on for the duration of the meeting and to keep their microphones muted except when I invite them to speak. Officers will join us to introduce their reports in the usual way. Any members wishing to ask questions or make a comment should indicate this by clicking the raised hand function on the right-hand side of their screen. When I invite you to speak, please unmute your microphone, ask your question, and then mute it again to allow officers to respond. There will be no points of order or personal explanations. I would ask for your patience if we run into technical problems, and should this occur, I will declare an adjournment while the fault is addressed and the public broadcast will be paused. If it is not possible to address the fault, the meeting may be abandoned until such time as it can be reconvened. Please also note that to facilitate discussion, I intend to waive the committee procedure rule limiting members' contributions to 5 minutes. I also propose to allow members to speak more than once on each item if appropriate. However, make sure that your contributions remain concise and to the point, and I'd remind members and officers that all virtual meetings will be recorded. Okay, members, I will begin by calling the names of all members of the committee to establish your presence. If you could then please confirm. Councillor Ashwood. Councillor Batchelor.
Present.
Councillor Costello.
Here.
Councillor Every.
Present.
Councillor French.
Present.
Councillor Machini.
Present.
Welcome back, Elisa, to the committee.
Thank you.
Councillor Nieto.
Present.
Councillor Smith.
Present.
Welcome to your first meeting, Mandy.
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor.
Present.
Thank you. And myself, Councillor Criswell. So item 1 is notification of chairman and chairwoman, vice chairman and vice chairwoman. Nick, can you please confirm those appointments?
Yep, Chair. Thank you, Chair. At the annual meeting of Council that was held yesterday on 19th of May 2020, Council was pleased to reappoint Councillor Steve Criswell as the chairman of the committee and to appoint Councillor Lena Nieto as the vice chairwoman.
Thank you, Nick. So welcome, Lena, to the vice chairmanship. The outgoing vice chairman, Councillor Goldsack, has asked me to read a note out to the meeting, and so I will do so. I have only been vice chairman of the committee for a short while, but the only regret I have about accepting the chairmanship of the Commercial and Investments Committee is that I've lost the Communities and Partnerships vice position. I had come not just to respect the committee, officers, members and the goals, but love watching it deliver as promised. Could you please pass on my thanks to the officers and members, and I wish you well for the coming months and years. If I can assist in any way, please ask, and as discussed, I will continue to be involved in the Cambridge University project engagement. Firstly, can I give a special thanks to yourself and Adrian Chapman, not just for the sterling work during the lockdown period, which has been amazing, but also for establishing communities and partnerships at the heart of all that is done and making it the heartbeat of Cambridgeshire County Council. So that's Mark's parting note, which is much appreciated. Item 2, apologies for absence and declarations of interest. So do we have any apologies, Nick?
No, no apologies. Everyone's here.
I think we're all here, thank you. And declarations of interest. I need to declare an interest as the proposer and local member for the Somersham bid in the Community Capitals Fund under agenda item 6. And I think Councillor French, you wish to as well.
Yes, I have two, which are both in Fenland. One is Estover and one is Friday Bridge Tower.
Thank you, Jan. So we'll both abstain from voting on that when we get to that item. Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? Okay, thank you. So the next item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of April. We're being asked to approve the minutes, members, as a correct record. Can I ask if you're all happy with that? Please indicate if not. If there's no indication, then I'll assume we're happy with the minutes. Thank you. I can't see anybody indicating, so we'll approve those minutes and I'll sign them when we get back to Shire Hall in due course. Item 3B is the action log. Adrian, do you have any updates for us on the action log?
Yes, good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members. Really great to see you. Just two further updates, please, since the action log was published. In relation to action 245, it falls into two parts. This was around the consultation of the new joint health and wellbeing strategy. The second part of that action was clarification sought from the Director of Public Health on whether the East of England Ambulance Service Trust Board had been involved in the joint health and wellbeing strategy. Liz Robin, the DPH, has confirmed that they haven't been directly involved in the consultation to date. However, the Ambulance Trust is included on the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Sustainable Transformation Partnership and some of its subgroups, which are included in the consultation. And then secondly, in relation to action 260, this related to a query from our last committee meeting for the Director of Education, Jonathan Lewis, around concerns with the free school meal food voucher scheme. The update from Jonathan is as follows. The voucher scheme the majority of schools are using in Cambridgeshire is the government-funded Eden Red FSM voucher scheme. Schools were directed to use this through Department for Education guidance in April. It offers a range of supermarkets and it does allow the use of the vouchers online, although there were some teething issues with this. All of the major home delivery supermarkets are included. Lidl and Co-op are still not supported by the scheme and parents require an email address to use the vouchers. Jonathan confirms that he continues to raise daily issues from schools over issues with the vouchers directly with the DfE. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Adrian. Any questions, members, on the action log? Any questions or comments? Jan French.
Thank you, Steve. Action 233, do we have an update with regarding to the Growing Fenland Town reports?
Thank you, Councillor French. Sadly not. I've contacted the lead officer that presented to committee back in January and have yet to receive a response. If the Democratic Services Officer can make note, I'll use the fact that it's been raised again today to chase again.
Thank you, Edwin.
Thank you. Councillor Della Costello.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered where we were with the NFU. It did say in the action plan that they have been contacted. Has that moved any further forward? Are they involved?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Costello. So we've invited the NFU to join the community reference group, which will ensure that alongside CAPALC, the Cambridgeshire Association of Local Councils, and Cambridgeshire Acre, who support our more rural communities, we should ensure that there is a really helpful input on the economic recovery for rural communities and rural businesses, which I think was the issue raised last time. And the other thing that I've done is to ensure that the economic recovery cell, which has been created as part of the local resilience form recovery plan, is cognizant of the issue of rural economic recovery, and will make sure that the NFU connection is made there too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian. No further comments, members. Then we'll move on to the next item, which is item 4, petitions and public questions. We've had no public questions or petitions, so we'll move on to item 5, which is the COVID-19 update report. Adrian, thank you. And I'll just refer to the fact that officers have been asked to bring a report to each Policy and Service Committee meeting on the COVID-19 response to date for those services for which the committee is responsible. A similar report will be brought to each future meeting until further notice. Given the rapidly changing situation and the need to provide the committee and public with the most up-to-date information possible, I've accepted this as a late report on the following grounds: lateness to allow for a report to contain the most up-to-date information possible, and urgency to enable the committee to be briefed on the current situation in relation to the council's response to COVID-19 for those services which the committee is responsible. So it was circulated under a late item separately. Adrian, could you please introduce the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, very happy to. And I'll be brief, but because I think the report hopefully contains the information that members will find helpful. But I will just pick out, if I may, some key issues and some key points. The first 2 sections of the report describe the background and context. I won't repeat that again, but obviously very happy to take any questions at the end on those sections. Instead, I'll jump straight into section 3, which is the section that relates specifically to this committee. And unlike last month, for this month's report, I've broken down the updates between our normal service specific issues and response, and then secondly, the county-wide hub response, which the Directorate is overseeing. So just quickly running through, first of all, the service specific issues, just point out some key headlines. In section 3.2 around libraries and archives, as reported, really, we've seen an incredible response to a digital offer that we've now made on the back of already our investment in library services, and the vision that was signed off by this committee in December last year, actually really now coming to fruition through the opportunities that we've created. You can see in section 3.2.1 the increased volume of social media activity in relation to the library service, and last month's report I included some information about the number of additional digital members. So it's very much challenging the way we think about library provision. Clearly, we wouldn't move to a default digital service for libraries, but this is very much adding value, I think, to what our future library service would look like. At the moment, the national guidance suggests that we might consider reopening libraries from the 4th of July at the earliest. But we are working now on our preparations for that, including how that will be managed should we get the all clear to do so. But I think members should be satisfied actually that there is an incredible offer out there, very different, I think, to many other areas, and it's really reaching lots of new people. Similarly, the library service, along with our Cambridgeshire Skills Service and the Skills Service in Peterborough, has launched in the last few days a really innovative web-based and person-based offer for people who are either shielded at home or are otherwise at home for other reasons, maybe self-isolating or because they are furloughed. And we are anxious, I think, about people's well-being at the moment. Obviously, particularly if you're shielding at home and have been at home already for 8 or 10 weeks, we're concerned about people's emotional and mental health and well-being. And the service we've launched, called Open New Doors, we'll share details of that through the media and through members' updates shortly, provides a whole range of opportunities for people to participate, to connect with others, to learn new things, a new language, or to learn how to cook, or to participate with your children in arts and crafts activities, as well as some really helpful information on maintaining your well-being. So a really innovative service. Most of the committee will be familiar with our partnership with Civic, who are helping us with our library's vision through the Future Libraries Initiative, and Civic have also joined that partnership. So they're seeing the innovative approach that that's taking. And just finally in this section, two other points around service demand. So first of all, at 3.4, I have flagged that there has been a small increase in demand for our domestic abuse services. That has plateaued for the last few weeks, in actual fact, which is reassuring. And our services continue to manage that demand really well. We've adapted the service there. And Rob Hill, the Assistant Director, is here with us today, and we'll be able to answer any specific questions in relation to that service. And then also in relation to demand, both the coroner's service and the registration service can only operate in a very limited way at the moment, and therefore, by default, there is a significant backlog building of cases that need to be processed. So we are putting in place now, as part of our recovery planning, measures that enable us to deal with those backlogs in a timely manner. Particularly anxious about both of those services because obviously for coroners there are bereaved families that need closure, and we need to deal with the backlog very quickly. And similarly for registrations, particularly ceremonies, people's happy days have been turned upside down. So the sooner we can get back on track with those when we give them permission to do so, I think is really important. So there are service updates. Just turning to the county-wide response hub, continues to be incredibly busy. Just to bring the numbers up to date, as of last night actually, there were 17,089 people across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough who are formally registered as shielding. So the number continues to grow. And as the report says, there are a total of 29,000 of our residents that the NHS believe do need to be shielding. So there's still some distance to travel. No indication yet of the impact of the easing of lockdown on the shielded population, but discussions we know are underway nationally about whether or not that scheme will continue. All of our, just to remind members, all of our newly registered shielded population receive contact from us within 24 hours of us being notified that they're shielding, and we receive notice every day from the government. So within 24 hours, they receive some form of communication, followed up with a phone conversation, which can last between 30 minutes and an hour, where we can really find out the issues that are concerning to the resident, whether they've got critically enough urgent supplies of food and medicines and other essential supplies, and how they would like us to support them throughout this shielding process. And at the moment, the average time scale for reaching people by telephone is, I think, 3.6 days. We're hovering around between 3 and 4 days to make that call. Of those people that don't need support, again, just to remind everyone, they do receive, so if people aren't requiring a regular telephone call from us after that initial call, they still receive communication to remind them that we're here, and should their care break down, they know that they can reach out to us. I think we've been here for about 8 weeks now, and we've had just over now 4,000 incoming calls to the 0345 telephone number, mostly from shielded people, but also from community organisations that are looking for advice and support to offer help. Lots of calls from members, which is really welcome. Lots of enquiries around what shielding actually means. And we've responded to nearly 9,000 requests for help, individual requests that have been submitted via either email or our digital form for help, ranging from urgent food supplies through to befriending, and increasingly seeing much more now in relation to household chores that were being done by informal carers for shielded people. But for obvious reasons, those carers are no longer going into the shielded people's homes, and things are starting to build up for them. As a result, we've created a new community response service, because I go back to my point really around anxiety for people's well-being. I think if you're shielded and you're very worried about even going into your garden, but your grass is growing, or your garden is full of weeds, or you've got some household chores that you simply can't do and that were being done by an informal carer or a neighbour even, those are the sorts of things that I think are going to eat away at people. If they can see their garden declining, these things that perhaps I certainly took for granted before this pandemic, no longer take for granted, we need to be able to provide a service. And that's what we've done. We've set up a community response service which uses our library staff very much in the spirit of our new libraries model, very much in the spirit of the Sow and Think Communities pilot, but also local volunteers to react and respond quickly to calls for help that can just nip in the bud any anxieties that our shielded population are presenting with. And then I'll just finally draw your attention to section 4, which is the financial implications section. We're required to provide information on our financial obligations, pressures and implications on a weekly basis to MHCLG. So this summarises the position up to the end of April for your information, and I've included at 4.3 some bullet point headline facts and justifications there for where those costs and losses of income are sitting. So I think that's everything, Chairman, I need to raise, and as always, very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Adrian. Very comprehensive report, and I'm very aware of all the hard work that's gone into actually doing a great deal for protecting the vulnerable people in Cambridgeshire. A lot going on, and I'm sort of very proud of what we're doing. So thank you very much to you and the team, Adrian. So I have some questions and comments. Councillor Every.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I please add our thanks too for all the staff's work and what's been happening over these last 8 to 9 weeks. And from a district perspective, the synergy that there is between the hubs that are district council and the work that's being done with the county council and with the parish councils, that is working incredibly well, particularly in my area, which obviously I know more about. But the work and the collaboration and the partnership approach that's been happening there has been really quite stunning, and I want to thank you all for that. And also the link, we have a link person who works with us, Wendy Lansdowne, and she's been absolutely brilliant. Our second newsletter is going out, and we've been able to access the education department to allow, they put in information, county councils put information, and I know our residents are very, very grateful for the collaboration and partnership working that we have. So if you could pass that on from a district perspective, Adrian, I would like people to know on the ground just how successful it's been. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Every. I absolutely will, and I should also echo your praise of our district and city council partners who have continue to deliver to far wider groups of people who are vulnerable and not shielded. And yeah, we're immensely proud of the collaboration that is happening on the ground, and it's great to hear that reflected. So thank you. I'll absolutely pass that on to the team.
Thank you. Councillor Amanda Taylor.
And firstly, about the registrations of births, really. And understand that a wedding or a civil ceremony can be put off. Deaths obviously can't, and births also happen when they happen. I wondered if, through you, Chair, whether I might ask Mr. Chapman, would he agree that not being able to register births may pose some risks about us knowing where children are born, particularly in vulnerable families? And in the default of being able to register them properly, do we have any information from the hospitals about births? And my second question was about the cessation of citizenship ceremonies, and whether it will be possible to re-begin to reincite that and to start having the citizenship ceremonies and processes in a virtual way. because there are people who have been waiting many months for citizenship to be completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Yes, this is you know, an area of concern. These are important milestones in people's lives, and we're in a fortunate position actually of our registration services manager sitting on a number of national bodies that are advising the General Registry Office, who we have to take our advice and guidance from. And in fact instruction from, to help shape the return to some form of normality as quickly as possible. For reassurance, arrangements were made very quickly for deaths to continue to be registered via other means, primarily telephone, which does at least allow people to process and move towards a funeral, which is important. But births absolutely are a different matter. For reassurance, we do know and are keeping a very good record of all people that are, or children that are born in Cambridgeshire during the pandemic. There are arrangements in place for formal birth registrations to happen for the months following the easing of the lockdown. But every child being born is known to us, they're known to the health system. They are receiving whatever support they or the parents require. So the only difference really is the registration itself. For all of the purposes, their identity is known and they are within our system. The citizenship ceremony is again a very, very good point and hugely momentous occasion for residents, a very important episode in their lives, and I'm sure I'll seek a further briefing on this from the chairman and from our registration services manager, but every effort will be being made to bring those services back as quickly as possible. So with your permission, if I may take that away and provide a briefing note to the committee with some indication of when that might happen and how that might happen, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, happy with that, Amanda?
Yeah, thank you very much. I am reassured that we are collecting information on births, even if they're not getting their certificates in person. And regarding the citizenship, you know, I know there are some people who feel very much in limbo at present, and you know can't travel away, so but are stuck in the UK and would like to continue with the citizenship. And you know, I just wonder whether some of the learning and citizenship procedures and the testing could be done online, even if the ceremonies have to wait until after lockdown. So I'd appreciate hearing further about that. Thank you.
With pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, Amanda will follow that up. Liz and Amanda, can you remove your blue hands, please? Raised hands. Councillor French.
Right.
Thank you, Adrian. Adrian, can I ask, I have a couple who were due to get married in the middle of April, which obviously had to be postponed. The question they have, that their certificate runs out in October. I'm not sure what that is. It is a band certificate, what used to be a band. And if they can't get married before October, will they have to pay for this again?
Thank you, Councillor French. Rather than attempt to respond and get it wrong, if I may, I'll ask for a formal response to be provided by the Registration Services Manager. My view is that if we've any control over that, then we would be looking to be as flexible as possible. That doesn't seem to be an issue of their making, but we are guided by the GRO. I also wonder actually if it might be helpful for us to provide some FAQs on some of the themes that are emerging in relation to the registration service for members, so that it helps you to respond more directly to, obviously you can come to us at any point, but if you've got an FAQs to hand, it might be helpful in responding to some of these sorts of issues. So if members agree, I'll get that arranged and published.
Yes, they could go on the website, Adrian, as well.
Indeed,
couldn't they? So,
yeah, indeed.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Councillor Henry Batchelor.
Thank you, Chairman. Two questions about the both relating to the shielded list, item 3.7.2 in the report, Adrian. So you mentioned that the NHS have identified around 29,000, but whereas only 17,000 people have registered on the shielded list. I mean, presumably the NHS know these people, and I'm sure you've investigated this, but it might be worth asking the NHS who they think else might need to be shielded, and then we can proactively contact them. And second question, before you answer, do you know the reason for the sort of 10-12% disparity between the percentage of people registered on the shield list in, say, Huntingdonshire, which is the highest, and East Cambridgeshire, which is the lowest? And is it just a case of sort of the word not getting out that people need to register, or people just, a lot healthier in East Cambs?
Thank you, Councillor Batchelor. Two really good questions. What I'd say in response to the first point is that we have now received the data from the government via the NHS on the name and address details of the 29,000 people that they believe should be registered, albeit that some of the data appears to be a little bit outdated. What we have also now started to receive is information from the National Shielding Team that's been set up as part of MHCLG, who are proactively contacting, in our case, those 29,000 people that haven't registered, to encourage them to do so. Registration isn't compulsory, but obviously there are significant benefits to registering, not least of all to have priority access to food from supermarket deliveries and so on. So the national team are following up contact with people that haven't yet registered but should really do so. What we've now received on top of that, we're not short of data, is details of where that contact has been inconclusive. So there are several error codes that we receive against this data every day that shows us where perhaps contact simply couldn't be made, the phone wasn't answered from the national team call to the local person, or where the call was ended after a few seconds, perhaps because the resident thought it was a scam, right through to perhaps there being issues with language and understanding the situation. So the first cut of that data was around 4,500 names of people where contact had been inconclusive. So these are 4,500 out of the 29,000 that haven't yet registered and who have not yet had contact successfully with the national team. So last week we undertook door knocks of all 4,500, an incredible effort on the part of council officers, our district partners, but also the fire service, Team Rubicon, which is a team of ex-military veterans, and the British Red Cross, to go to visit every single property where contact was inconclusive, primarily because we're anxious to make sure that those residents are safe and well, but also to ask them to consider registration. And we're starting to see, I think, the impact of that now. So the numbers of registered shielded people are starting to creep up again. So even between the report being published, which was 16,000, just over 16,000 people registered, to today where there are 17,000, we're starting to see, I think, the impact of those calls. We'll continue to do this, Councillor Batchelor. We'll continue to reach out to people that we're notified haven't yet registered, until they really they've satisfied us that they have no needs, or better still, that they have actually registered with the national service, so that we get their details and can offer them with some support. The disparity question is interesting. I think it very much relates to demographics. Actually, the conditions under which somebody needs to shield are very specific. They're very complex, very serious health conditions, clinical conditions, ranging from having had a transplant through to COPD or serious respiratory conditions, through to some types, but not all, cancers. So I think there are 6 specific but very complex medical conditions. And it doesn't really, therefore, it's very much based on the demographic profile, I think, of a community. So there are some areas, I think, in the county where the numbers are perhaps higher than we'd anticipated, but that's perhaps because the population is older and therefore maybe more unwell than other parts of the county. We should probably work this out by capita. That might be a more helpful illustration of how the numbers look per head of population or per 100,000 or something, which I'll take as an action actually, and share that in the next committee report. That might be a more revealing and helpful statistic, but it's very much driven, I think, by the demographic profile of the population.
Just
Thank
to
you.
reassure you, Henry, the issue about contacting the shielded people is something that Adrian and I discuss on a daily basis, and the frustration is, I think, around the 29,000 figure. Quite a lot of people may suspect it's a scam, but they also think, well, I don't need any help, so why should I register? But that does put us in a difficult position as the local authority, because we don't know that that's what they're thinking. So anything we can do to encourage people to register, even if they just register and say, I don't need any help, that's great assistance in itself. The more pressing problem, as Adrian has outlined, was the 4,500 where we could make no contact whatsoever. And that did ring alarm bells, quite rightly so. They have all been door knocked, as Adrian said, a very big task last week. But that has reassured us and just flagged up one or two people that did need that extra help. So we're doing all we can, and it's just, it would be helpful if everybody that was shielded did register, because at least we would then know their situation. Did you want to come back with anything?
No, that's reassuring. Thanks for the update.
Thank you. Councillor Lisa Machini.
Hello. First of all, no, thank you very much. I'm very glad somebody talked about citizenship ceremonies. I mean, it is quite important, and as some people on this meeting know, I was in one. So, you know, it is very important, and also you don't get your passport until you've had one. So they do have practical implications as well. So thank you very much for that. I did have another question about Section 4 of the report with the financial implications, because I think, I mean, we've all seen, I mean, I've seen on the papers for GPC that, you know, there is an evolving financial situation when it comes to this, but I was wondering if there would be some benefit in having a bit more clarity about what kind of funding we expect for central government and when. Because so far the only actual description of anything I've seen is the money that is coming to highways. But I think every committee could do with like some more forecasting if it's possible at all. Because, I mean, it was interesting, it was useful to see like the total of the figures we anticipate, but it would be nice to know, well, basically, if we anticipate any resources to deal with it. So that, I think that might be useful, unless I've missed something obvious, but I don't think it's there. Thank you.
We have had two tranches, haven't we, Adrian? Perhaps you could just give a bit more detail. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Councillor Machini, with pleasure. So we have had two, as the Chairman confirms, payments already from central government, part of a share of 1.6, two lots of 1.6 billion. We haven't had all of that money, obviously, ourselves. I wish we did. The important point to make really is that the details in the financial section at Section 4 isn't itself a claim to government. The process isn't working in that way. Instead, government are recognising that local government is playing a critical and pivotal role in the response and recovery to this situation, and have so far shared a proportion of that allocation to support our work. We continue to capture all of the costs, and that's what you're seeing in Section 4, or a summary of the costs in Section 4, and continue to report that through to government, such that they can appreciate the extent of the financial pressure that is being experienced by us and other councils. Our Section 151 officer is very engaged with the County Councils network on this issue. There are, you know, a number of people that continue to request and lobby for additional funding. I can't yet answer the first part of the question, which is what will we receive and when, beyond what we've already had. But certainly as soon as we know, there'll be a national announcement. That information will be shared through the normal democratic process. So two payments so far, and we continue to record the costs and loss of income that we're experiencing in anticipation that there will be further payments to follow.
Thank you, Adrian. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the first payment was in round figures 14 million and the second 11 million. Yeah.
That's correct. Yes, thank you. Sorry, I should have said that. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. Councillor Nina Nieto.
Thank you, Chair. Adrian, I just wanted to start by passing residents thanks for the coordination hub. Those I had residents shielding, and they just want me to to say thank you for all the work. They are completely amazed by the service that we are providing. So I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of them. And I just wanted to know if there was an update on the volunteers that have signed up to help. How are we dealing with that?
Yes, thank you. So this relates to the circa 2,500 volunteers that signed up to support our efforts, alongside the huge numbers that also signed up to the NHS volunteer scheme, and also those that haven't registered with anybody but are just getting on with some fantastic work in our communities. It's absolutely overwhelming. As with many features of the way we're currently working, this is an area we very much want to ensure is sustained beyond the response phase into whatever our new normal looks like. So a big part of Think Communities, as you know, was about ensuring that services and our work was driven down to the most local level. And the response we're seeing from volunteers is exactly that. And what we don't want to do is to sweep in and control that in any way. What I think we've been amazed by is the self-generated response of communities and volunteers that have just stepped up because they recognise that there are people in their community, in their street, who just need a helping hand. That's the first thing. Of our 2,500 volunteers, we've shared details of about 800 or so with our district and city council partners who are deploying those volunteers locally. We're just working with a team of volunteers now who, when they first expressed an interest in volunteering, confirmed that they would be willing to go into a care environment, so a care home, or perhaps to provide care in somebody's own home. Amazingly, actually, and I think I may have flagged this last time, a good 50% or so of people who have registered with us have a current enhanced DBS check, which is an amazing resource to have. So to have that, and so many people saying they're willing to be trained to go into support a care home, for example, is phenomenal. So we're working with about 140 at the moment of those volunteers to put them through some additional training very quickly. It's happening right now. And they will go into care homes who are starting to say to us that they really need help with some of the social activities, some of the chores, the kitchen duties, for example, sorts of things that their staff team would normally be able to cover off, but that are absolutely vital to the well-being of the residents. But the staff are having obviously to focus on direct care. So that's a particular effort that we're making. Finally, we are working on a volunteer programme, which with our 3 CVS organisations, so Hunts Forum, Cambridge Council for Voluntary Service, and in Peterborough, the CVS, to develop more formal but accessible arrangements, I suppose, a framework for volunteers to continue to participate in whatever way they choose, without burden, without bureaucracy, in a safe way, but in a way which is much more structured and organised than we've ever seen before, which builds on the legacy of what we have seen happening on the ground during the COVID pandemic. So I think probably for the next meeting, we'll be in a position to be able to say more about that scheme as we are entering into conversations with the 3 CVS organisations over the next few days.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. So members, I have no further questions or comments. So are you happy going to the recommendations that we've noted and commented on the progress to date in response to the impact of coronavirus? Please indicate if not, otherwise I'll take it that we're all happy. No one indicating? Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, members.
So move on to item 6, members, which is the Communities Capital Fund. And Ian Phillips is here as head of Citizen Partnerships Integration to present the report. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you, Chairman, and morning, everybody. So in the beginning of April, the Council launched its new £5 million Communities Capital Fund. Since then, we've had 40 applications received, offering a broad range of projects across the county, all of which are community-led projects, which are looking to improve their health and well-being, social or economic opportunities and outcomes. Those projects are working through a member and officer panel, depending on their size and complexity. And we've had our first member panel about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, which looked at the first range of fairly low-level projects under £50,000. So before you today are recommendations for 5 of those projects, which the committee the panel felt met strongly the criteria and would have a good impact within those local communities. So our first one is the Staltree Skate Park, where the Staltree Youth Project has set up from local communities, have raised money themselves and has now become their own charity to develop and install a skate park within the village. There's a high community support and demand for this type of project. There are some evidence that people are often having to travel quite some distance because there's not the facilities within the locality. And the parish council are also strongly supporting by contributing over £100,000 themselves. So funding requested of £18,000 for that project, and members recommended that at their panel. Our next project is over in Somersham. The parish council have applied for this grant, seeking 32,000, just over £32,000, and contributing nearly 27,000 themselves. Again, this is a project where the applicant stated there was a lack of facilities locally, which means parents and young children are often disadvantaged or have to travel some distance. It was noted that there was some sort of levels of antisocial behaviour within the village because of the lack of things for young people to do, and so the members felt strongly that this was a project that should be supported. Third project is again from a parish council over in Over. Different type of project. This is one that's very much looking to open up the river and facilities within Over to become much more accessible and available for community, sports and leisure use. So that the funding will be for a new slipway, a gravel beach, paths and parking areas, which will really open up that area. There's a lot of information from the parish council of different sports and leisure community groups that would want to use the facilities. And match funding have already been raised from various grants and from the parish council of 72,000, leaving just over 25,000 requested from this fund. Our next project is over in March, Estervode Park. This is a community interest company that's recently taken on the lease of a playing field and looking to enhance the facilities that are within the pavilion and sports facilities. So they're looking to create new fencing, pathways, patios, cafes and kitchen. And all of this will help to bring that facility much more into a community use, increase its appeal, make it safer for users and for dog walkers, and just offer up a community service which will attract sports users, but also a broad range of social use across the community. So 35,000 are requested for that project, and 6,000 match funding also available. Our final project, which we're recommending today, is Tower Hall in Friday Bridge. So this is a community hall which the applicant talks about being in quite a poor state of repair, quite dated in many cases, which has reduced the amount of community bookings. They've had feedback that people don't want to go there because the facilities are outdated. So 36,000 requested, with 3,000 matched funding, and expecting a further 3,000 from the parish council to come. And this will just be to upgrade the facility, particularly the toilet facilities within the community centre. At this stage, the 36,000 was an estimate because of the COVID restrictions. They've not been able to get full quotations. So a recommendation would be that would be a maximum amount that would be allocated, and the final sum to be confirmed, subject to a written quotation and confirmation that planning permission is in place. So those are the 5 projects which are in front of you today. In terms of other projects that we have received, they are all working through various different stages of assessment. Larger projects that are over 50,000 are first being assessed by an officer group, and then applicants contacted and asked to provide a detailed business case, so confirmation of match funding, confirmation of the community impact and benefit and demand for such a project, confirmation whether there's planning permission required, and as you'd expect, a due diligence that officers are taking through. As we're going through that process, we're now starting to get 1 or 2 applicants coming back to us with further information. We'll be setting up a further member panel in the next couple of weeks to review those projects. So I would anticipate that some of those larger projects and a few more smaller projects will be coming forward to you in June committee for consideration. Very happy to take questions on any of that or the process in general if members want to ask anything.
Thank you very much, Ian. So I'd just like to thank members of the committee that have sat on the scoring panels. And of course, that membership will vary because it needs to exclude any councillors that have bids in of their own. And just a reminder that myself and Councillor French have already declared an interest on 2 bids for Councillor French, 1 for myself. So we will not discuss them or vote on them. We'll abstain when it comes to the vote. So open to any questions for Ian on any of the bids or the process at all. Okay. Yes, Councillor French.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to say thank you to the officers for doing this very quickly. I know these are small bids, but it means such a lot to the people who have applied to them. So thank you very much, all involved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. So if there are no other points, members, we'll just move to vote on the individual. I think to make it very transparent, I'll just go through them individually so that Jan and I can abstain on the ones that we've been involved in. So I'll just read them out individually, members. So if you have any issues with the individual ones, please indicate and we'll either discuss or go to a vote. So Saltry Skate Park, £18,000. Are members happy that that one is approved? No one indicating, thank you. Somersham Outdoor Play Equipment, is everyone happy that that's approved, subject to my abstention?
I'm happy with them, yeah.
No comments, okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mandy. Just if it's not contentious, we'll just say indicate if it's no. So you're approving. Thank you very much. Enhancements to Overcoat in Over, 25,597. Anybody wish to comment or object on that? No, good. Let's take that as approved then. Thank you. Estover Park in March, £35,000. Everyone happy? Abstention from Councillor French. Okay, thank you. And that was supported by Councillor Count as well as Councillor French. And same with Tower Hall Friday Bridge. Any comments or objections to that? Abstain from Councillor French.
I just
That
come
was
in,
also
sorry.
supported against the account. Sorry?
I can't raise my hand. Sorry, I can't raise my hand because I'm the host.
Ah, right, Nick. Nick, would you
Could I
like to come
just
in?
ask? Could I just ask Ian to repeat what he was saying as the sort of the sub recommendation that was involved with this final application?
Ian, did you have a comment?
So my recommendation was that a maximum of 36,000 is approved, subject to written quotations being made available from the applicant and confirmation of planning permission.
Thank you, Ian. So members, with the Tower Hall Friday Bridge, we're approving on that basis, Ian. That's what we're saying. Maximum of £36,000. Yeah. Okay. Members happy with that? Yes. Thank you, Nick, for clarifying that. That's good. Okay. That appears to be unanimous then on all of them, apart from the abstentions. Nick, thank you very much. Thank you, members. Thank you very much, Ian, for your work on this. And as you say, further bids to come forward. Thank you. So we now move on to item 7, members, which is any updates from community champions. Would anybody like to provide an update at all to the committee? Any raised hands? Councillor French.
Yeah, just ongoing that we obviously can't get on with what we propose to do, but we still are helping in the community, helping as much as we possibly can. And we'll continue to do so until such times as we can get back out and do what we'd like to do.
Thank you, Jan. Yes, difficult times. Liz? Sorry, Adela next.
Yeah, I'd just like to say a similar thing to Jan. It's really hard to get out there, but what I do think has been exciting over the last few weeks is the applications to the community grant. I've been involved with a number of groups, supporting them and putting in their applications, and obviously I sat on the panel, and I think it's really exciting that we're going to be able to help local communities, especially at this particular time when people need something to focus on in their lives. That's it.
Thanks, Adela. Liz, any comments from you?
Yes, my blue hand doesn't appear to want to raise, so I'm sorry about that. Just to say thank you also for to everybody for the support that they're providing to allow us to do what we are able to do as community champions, and to endorse what both Adela and Jan have said. Just a couple of things. I was absolutely delighted that personally I was elected as chair of the Community Safety Partnership in East Cambs, which I think is going to be really helpful working across East Cambs. So that's excellent. So I'm really delighted about that. But also to mention, which I have sent through to the Education Department, but just in case you didn't know, that we have a very lively Cambs youth panel who's working across Cambridgeshire, who are collecting and renovating IT devices and putting them into schools for youngsters who can't get their homeschooling because they can't access, because they haven't got the IT equipment. And they've just had finances from the lottery fund. So if you have any schools in your area where you have youngsters who have not got the devices, I can put you in touch with them, and I'm sure they'll be able to help. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Liz. Anybody, any questions for our community champions? Okay, thank you very much. In which case we'll move on to item 8, which is the agenda plan. Nick and Adrian, any changes to the agenda plan?
Thank you, Chairman. No changes, except to say that in June there will be some further capital fund bids to approve, subject to the panel actually making any recommendations, of course. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Adrian. Okay, nobody indicating to speak. So in that case, we'll we need to move on as it's the.
Sorry, Chairman. Sorry, I put my hand up too late.
Yeah, sorry.
Just a quick question. We've got a provisional meeting penciled in for the 6th of August. Do we know if we might require this date or not yet?
Well, I think because we're having the COVID-19 updates with every meeting, then they're all scheduled to take place at the moment, Henry, until further notice. So
okay, I'll get it in the diary.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So yes, members. As this is the first meeting of the municipal year, we are required to review all our committee appointments. The list of current appointees to outside bodies is shown in Appendix 2, and the annual report on outside bodies was presented to full council yesterday. And I think we've identified one where there's no need to have a appointment at councillor representation, which is the Fenland Strategic Partnership. But if we could just go through the appointments are Appendix 2 for outside bodies and Appendix 3 for internal advisory groups. So if we could just scroll through the list of appointments, please, members, and just pick out any that need to change. Of course, the outside bodies are the relevant local member or somebody with that interest rather than someone from this committee. I'm just looking through. Community safety partnerships. Elisa, are you happy to take over from Councillor Richards for the community safety partnership for the city?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Otherwise, every other member is still on the committee. Just scrolling down. All local members. The County Advisory Group on Archives and Locals. Oh, that's Appendix 3. So Appendix 2, I think that's the only change in Appendix 2. Although, while we're on the subject of community safety, Councillor Nieto, are you happy to take over from Councillor Goldsack as the community safety champion and the white ribbon champion?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. So that's Appendix 2 with the outside bodies. So Nick, if we could record those changes, please. And members, are you happy with? Sorry, Jan?
Yeah, the Wisbech Community Development Trust, we don't have anybody on there. It was Councillor
I think that's in abeyance at the moment, Jan, so we'll revisit that in future, if that's okay. Lena.
Chair, I was just wondering if on the appointments report, if the contact details are still correct, because we still have Sarah. Just wondering if that needs to maybe change.
Oh, Sarah Ferguson, yes, we'll need to update that, Lena. Yes, thank you. With the officer contacts. Yeah, thank you. But Nick, if we could just make those updates with the community safety. And then, so could I ask members to approve that en bloc as the outside bodies? Are we happy for those to continue with those odd changes that I've mentioned? Any dissent? Lena, you're still showing, Lena, are you? Thank you. Okay. Are you coming on again, Lena? No, okay, thank you. So, okay, so those are approved then, members. So if we could move on to Appendix 3, which is the internal advisory bodies, and the County Advisory Group on Archives and Local Studies. Lena, are you happy to replace Councillor Goldsack on that?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. And Elisa, are you happy to replace Councillor Richards on the advisory group? Elisa?
Hello.
Are you happy to replace Councillor Richards on the Archives and Local Studies Advisory Group?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, doesn't meet very often. So,
No, that's
and
fine.
moving
It's
on.
just that the sound went off a little bit, so I didn't hear the request.
Sorry. Okay.
But thank you.
Innovate and Cultivate Fund Bid Assessment Panel. Lena, you happy to replace Councillor Goldsack?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. Chair, can I confirm I'm still on that?
It was Councillor Richards and you were substituting her, but I was just going to ask if you're happy to be on there instead of Councillor Richards, and she can
Yes, of
substitute for
course.
you if that's necessary. Okay, so we'll put you on that permanently, Lisa. You've been on before, so you know the ropes.
I've been on many times, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Poverty Working Group hasn't met for a while, but there is ongoing work. So I think the important one is that we replace Councillor Dupre. Henry or Amanda, are you happy to replace Councillor Dupre on the Poverty Working Group for when it meets again? Amanda? You're indicating,
Apologies.
Amanda.
Yeah, sorry. I'd be interested in being on it, but it'd be useful to know how often it meets and when.
Well, as it says on the appendix, every 4 months it's been meeting, but it hasn't met recently because there's work ongoing. But it really needs you or Councillor Batchelor, one of you, to be on there, really, if we can.
I'm happy to be on it. Yep.
So if one could be on it and one as a substitute, I think that would be useful, wouldn't it? Then one of you can attend if necessary. Are you happy with that, Henry?
I'll happily be sub, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And at least one can attend when we reconvene that. Shared Services Working Group, that's not unchanged. The library presents, Councillor Every has offered to replace Councillor Nieto on that. So you happy with that,
Yes,
Liz?
thank you. Yes, I'm absolutely
Great,
happy with that. Thank you.
Good, thank you. So members, can we take those on block, please, for the internal? We're happy with those amendments. Anybody not happy? Amanda and Henry, if you could remove your blue hands if you are happy.
Oh, I've got a question.
Ah, you have. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have you got a question, Amanda?
Yes.
Okay.
I have my hand up.
Okay, good. Please ask.
I am happy, but I just wanted to check whether the SACRE group is an appointment of this committee or whether it's the Children and Young People. Because if it's this one, then it's not on our list, and I represent the council.
The which group, Amanda?
For the Liberal Democrats.
SACRE, which is, I'm sure we'll check this, is the Children and Young People's Committee because it's about relating to religious education, but we'll check that, Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, right. Yeah, thank you. Henry?
Yeah, just a question. As we've got the Innovate and Cultivate Fund panel on here, should we have the Community Capital Fund on as well?
Well, that's taken from this committee, but it could be any of the members because it needs to exclude anybody with who's put a bid in, Henry. That's the only problem with that. So Ian will need to draw it from, and it might need to be. So in effect, it could be any of the whole committee. Are you with me?
Okay, yeah, I think so.
So Ian will need to just withdraw from the committee a cross-party group of members that doesn't include someone that's proposed a bid. So really, he needs the full 10 members of the committee to choose from, if that makes sense. Is that okay, Henry? Yeah, okay.
Chairman, if I may,
So
sorry,
are we happy?
Nick? Sorry, I can't raise my hand again. No, I just wanted to say that the committee did nominate 5 members for the membership for the panel, and it does need adding to the list. It's not been included in this batch that's included in the appendix, but there are 5 members who are nominated for it, and so if you would like to continue.
I think, Nick, as long as we ensure it's politically proportionate, we probably need to draw on all members of the committee because, as you can see, today there was 2 members that couldn't have been on the panel, and that may be the same in future. In fact, there may be more than 2. So I think it makes sense if Ian can draw them from the whole 10 members of the committee, as long as it's politically proportionate, as it should be. Is that okay, Nick?
That's fine. Yes, I'll update that in the.
Yeah. Else it will cause difficulties for Ian in raising a scoring panel otherwise. So, members, are you all happy with Appendix 3, those recommendations with the amendments we've mentioned? Nobody's showing they're not, so I'll take that as approved then. Thank you very much, members. So that draws the meeting to a close, members. The committee is due to meet on the 18th of June, and arrangements for this meeting will be confirmed nearer the time in the light of the emerging situation. Thank you very much all for attending, members and officers. And for those watching at home, Nick, did you have a final comment?
Sorry, yes, there was a final appointment to make for the champion.
We need to confirm the community champion. Elisa.
Yes, hello, I'm here. Yes, I'm still happy to do that.
I had spoken to you previously, I know, but we need to confirm it at the meeting. So is everyone happy?
I did
that
wonder,
Elisa
but then I thought
Sheeny replaces Councillor Richards as community champion for Cambridge City. Everyone happy? Any dissent? Could you indicate? Great, thank you very much. There's no problem with that then, Elisa. Thank you very much indeed. So welcome back to your original role. Yes, thank you. So right, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, members. Thank you, officers, and thank you those watching at home. I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.